Well, good evening to you. We're going to look in a verse in the book of Hosea. Hosea chapter 4. I went back and done some study on this, but I've got one verse here, and I'm not going to take it out of context, but sometimes one verse gives you enough for a message. It gives you enough for a meal. I had a good meal tonight, and I didn't want it to go to waste. Well, there's a good meal right here in chapter 4 in verse number 6. Now, this is a verse that I'm sure that is used, taking it out of context, making it say what you want it to say. But I don't want to do that. I want to take the verse and use it and try to explain a little bit of what this verse is actually meaning. I want to read it to you real quick. Hosea 4 and verse 6, it says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of my God, I will also forget thy children." Now, when I read that, I had to go back up at the beginning and sort of get of who he was referring to. The preachers of that day were getting a lot like green water. When you have green water, it's because of stagnation. Stagnation happens because the word is not living water to some people. This verse here says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." I really believe people enjoy easy worship. I believe pastors are maybe even somewhat guilty of wanting to talk about easy stuff. We don't want to scare the people. We don't want to frighten the people. And I want to think that that's sort of what's going on here. Is it could have been the fact that these priests got in age, they had their family, they had their own concerns, they had their own health issues. But it says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Well, you know where knowledge comes from. Knowledge comes from reading the Bible and learning the Bible and understanding the Bible. And that's where knowledge is attained. But some people, they never open up their Bible during the week, so therefore they're not getting the Word of God. They're not reading the Word of God until Sunday comes along. And when Sunday comes along, we are pretty much content to just sit there and tolerate somebody talking to us for 30 minutes or longer. We want to go to the house of worship just to keep trouble down in our immediate family. Think of all the people that maybe you might know that might be in the so-called house of God, and they really have their interest in other places. See, this verse here says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Well, where does knowledge come from? Well, knowledge comes from the speaker that is bringing out the word. I would hope that whoever happens to tune in to this video here, that you would be able to say that, you know what, you're getting knowledge in this little lesson we're doing tonight. But it don't stop there. It says, because thou hast rejected knowledge. Now, it's one thing to hear a message, it's a whole nother thing to reject the message. And you know, I don't care how good of a preacher is, if you reject what the minister is saying, then that's a choice that you make. That's not on the minister. But if the minister is not bringing God's holy word by the Spirit of God, then that means that the Spirit can't work through the preacher to deliver the words that needs to be said to the congregation. If the minister doesn't have the free course of liberty to bring what thus saith the Lord, then I think it would be best for the minister to say, Lord, your will be done. Get rid of all of my notes. Get rid of all of my thinking. Get rid of all of my wisdom that I have. And let me simply depend on you. I have no notes in front of me. Right there is all that I've got right here. There's nothing wrong with notes. I love using notes. But you know what? You can use notes, and notes can end up being your wisdom if you're not real careful. I think what the Lord is really wanting to say is that if the people reject it, and they reject the word, then that's a choice that they make. If the preacher decides to stay away from a subject that might be a little bit difficult or a little bit hard, and we don't want to go there because we don't want to put fear in our congregation, then that is a dangerous, dangerous thing. If it's like giving a kid milk when he's 10 years old. All you're giving him is milkshakes. You're not giving him hamburger meat. You're not giving him buns. You're not giving him cheese. You're not giving him a hamburger that he can enjoy, that you're feeding people with milk. And I think that's what's going on today. People are so babied into receiving milk when they need to be receiving the meat of the word. It says here in this verse, I will also reject thee. Now, who is he referring to? That thou shalt be no priest to me. Now, who's the priest? They're the ones that has the greater responsibility. Does that take any responsibility off of the congregation? You know, a congregation is only going to be as strong as the minister is able to minister. You know, a congregation generally is not going to grow more than the minister that is bringing the message. And a lot of people wants to go in with a bunch of content, with a bunch of history, instead of getting to the core of the message. What is the message? What does God see to be the message? The real message. You know, I would challenge anybody one Sunday to stand in front of the congregation and simply just keep the Bible shut and lay aside all of your video monitors and all of the ideas that you've got planned out and simply open up the book and let the Lord lead in the message. I want to admit something to you. I came out today and I've done this message like I'm doing to y'all. But you know, ever since I did that message, it just never seemed right. So I said, you know what? Instead of abandoning the Word of God, I decided to come out here and not use anything but what was in my memory. And you know, that's all the Lord, I think, wants us to do. He says, I'm going to reject thee because you are no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. See, when we don't speak according to the ability of God, we're not doing God a favor. We're doing our own message. We're doing the things that we want to do. And then he says, I will also forget thy children. Talking about the children as a group. You know, I believe who this writer is referring to, he's just wanting to get the attention of the people. If the minister is not doing their job, the people in the church is not going to be able to hear what the minister is saying because it's not food that is edible. You know, I can go in my house right now and eat junk food. I could go in there and get all them sweets that my wife has in there and go in there and just fill up on them sweets. But would it be better for me to eat on what is good for me, what will keep me healthy, what will make me healthy? I challenge anyone that stands behind the pulpit that, you know, it ain't about your word. It ain't even about my word today. It's really all about what thus saith the Lord. That's all it's about. So if you're out here today and you're listening, God just wants you to eat food that is good. And he was getting on the priest as much as he was getting on the people. So I thank you for watching, but consider what I'm trying to say today. Does that mean that God's going to reject someone if they're truly saved? You know what? It's like I said before. There's going to be a lot of people that's going to get to heaven with empty hands. They're not going to have nothing in their hands when they get to heaven. And what can God do to reward someone that didn't do anything, or that maybe didn't be concerned about his congregation or his church? It's something to think about. Thank y'all for watching.